I always saw my mom and my aunt's faces light up whenever we went to the local Filipino mini market in town, and the cashier behind the register would let them know about the latest and newest Filipino movies that came out on DVD and were available for purchase. I remember there being a lot of Lloyd Cruz, Ding Dong Dantes, and I just never really understood the appeal at the time. They played it on the weekends, and I just didn't get why they were so excited about these movies. To me, it was all just mainstream media, over the top performances. So while they were there, wiping away their tears, watching these movies on the weekends, I was just there sitting and enjoying my bag of chippy and drinking my coconut juice from the can out of a plastic straw. It was like they were a part of a secret club that was foreign to me, and I knew I loved my family, but I didn't understand this part of them. I was missing the key that would help unlock a part of my culture and a part of myself. And it wasn't until years later, after I graduated from college and moved away from home, that I finally found this missing piece. Filipino media is pretty much always on in the background and just kind of is the wallpaper of our childhood or our lives. I still remember the Wawawi theme song or Eat Bulaga playing on in the background, and that giggling track, that laughing track is a core memory for me and truly is part of the score of my childhood. It was vibrant, chaotic background noise, and in my home, TFC or the Filipino channel was not just a cable subscription, but basically a permanent resident in the home or just another relative. On any given day, our house would be filled again with that laughing track and sounds of audience members. And I just remember the show feeling like it had been on since the dawn of time. If it wasn't Eat Bulaga or Wawawi or a new show or show like 24 Horas or Balitang America, it was a teleserye. I distinctly really remember shows like Jezebel or Tubig at Langis, or on the weekends, the MMK series. Tubig at Langis. I had to do that, right? That's more appropriate. And for MMK, Maala ala mo kaya. That's how you say it, right? Maala ala mo kaya. Okay. Family gatherings were a symphony of these sounds. I still remember going to birthday parties or barbecues in New Jersey, while the TV was on, playing maybe Wawawi or Ipulaga, whatever it was, you would hear family members switching from English to Tagalog, Tagalog to Kapampangan to Taglish to English. It gave me whiplash. The TV would play while people were chatting away, eating food, kids were playing, all until maybe the sun went down or somebody busted out the magic mic or the magic sing. I thought it was magic mic, but maybe I'm crazy. You guys tell me, which one do you refer to it as in the comments? I still remember proudly scoring 99 anytime I sang Marie Osmond's Paper Roses, and scoring about a 92 if I sang Hula Desma's Dito Ba. My Filipino babysitters, retired nurse, and Lola and Lolo duo from Visayas would also play Filipino 80s action movies when they were babysitting me. And I have a lot of memories about that, and also of like funny movies starring Dolphy. So I remember his just like funny faces or facial reactions or facial expressions that would make me laugh from time to time and make them chuckle a bunch. But again, those Filipino DVDs and movies that my mom and aunt bought and then like lent each other were playing on in the weekend and kind of felt like appointment viewing. Like it was a thing. If they were going to be playing that DVD, their attention was locked, and this was before cable was offering the TFC and GMA subscription for us here. One main thing about me is I primarily understand Kapampangan more than Tagalog. However, as years have gone on, maybe that has switched, maybe that will switch, I don't know. But whenever they watched these movies, they would kind of translate or give me the gist of the plot. And when they would do so, it felt very like a serious tone. Like they were talking about it as if they were describing an important historical event. Like you needed to know, why was this happening? What did they do to this person? Who else is involved? Like the whole background. They did not leave a detail out when they were explaining the plot of these movies to me. And again, I saw it all, but none of it really sank in. And again, it was just like noise, just like another show. Didn't really understand the humor and even the deep seated pain when it came to some of the topics in the movies. Some of the content, like what made the drama so heavy. So these movies kind of felt like an inside joke I wasn't let in on. These shows and the movies were truly like a lifeline for my family. Again, home away from home when they were living on the total opposite side of the world. It was just a great way for them to stay connected. They were watching media that reflected their experiences, their sense of humor, their language. Meanwhile, I was a first generation Filipino American, also struggling to figure out my own dual identity. And the movies often felt like they belonged to them and not to me. It was this constant reminder of the gap that I felt as wide as the Pacific Ocean. I was there watching these movies, but I wasn't really there. So, what changed? It wasn't a single movie or a single moment, it was this slow, quiet, like turning. In 2023, my partner and I decided on a whim to check out some of these Filipino movies on the Criterion channel. We were already watching some other films on the Criterion channel, but he pointed out, I guess, like this playlist that they had at the time, which included like Lino Brocka's 1975 film, Manila in the Claws of Light, his 76 film, In Chiang, and also Kidlat Tahimik's 1977 film, Perfumed Nightmare. So we watched all of those. So yeah, months after that, we watched Martika Ramirez Escobar's 2022 indie film, Leonora Will Never Die. And at the time, I was really open to watching these movies because it had been a few years since I was last in the Philippines. We were last there in 2019. I was just missing it. So this kind of just felt like a no-brainer to watch these and kind of reconnect to, again, the language, the experiences, really just like time traveling or checking out these time capsules, right? But these movies that were on the Criterion channel were really what put, I guess, like Philippine cinema as an artistic movement on my personal radar. I had watched these movies, but didn't even really think to share that with my mom or my aunt. They never explicitly spoke to me about older movies. I was just watching them watch the newer things they came out throughout the first 1 to 2 decades here in the early 2000s. But it was really interesting to me just to see, oh, these are probably movies that they saw or that were coming out before they immigrated to the United States. And then earlier this year in 2025, my partner found out that there were some Filipino movies that were being released by Kani. And Kani is a boutique film distributor. They're really dedicated to expanding and reintroducing Asian cinema in North America. And I told him, hey, I'm half Asian. I live in North America. Sign me up and let's get some of those Blu-rays. Since then, we've casually kept an eye out for more Filipino movies. Earlier this year, news broke out that a legendary actress, a national artist, had passed away, and something shifted in how I personally connected with my mom and my aunt and how I appreciated Philippine cinema. So the actress I'm talking about is none other than Nora Honor. When she passed away, at least when talking to my mom and my aunt, it did not feel like just, celebrity gossip. It felt like they were mourning the loss of like a high school friend or a batchmate or a neighbor. So when she passed, they really started talking, like telling me things I never knew about them. And their conversations about her sparked something different. I really feel they weren't just reminiscing, they were like excavating memories that maybe they themselves haven't really thought of. in decades, but they really spoke about Nora Honor with a reverence that I had never fully appreciated before. They talked about her films, her Coca-Cola commercial, her song Pearly Shells, her philanthropic efforts, and what she meant to their generation. I sensed a tone of urgency when my aunt told me to watch Himala, and my mom kind of chimed in and was talking about some other films and other songs from their youth that I'd never heard of before. So again, I didn't feel like they were just like listing titles, but kind of like unlocking part of their pasts and sharing that with me when all of this happened. But all of this kind of triggered a story about their own personal high school friends and batchmates. I remember my mom telling me her college best friend was in the same room as Nora Honor, I guess either for some sort of performance or something, but that was like a big deal. And I loved listening to her share maybe how like I would react if I were in the same room or near, a celebrity or a pop star well known here in the US today. There was like this feeling in the air that kind of helped me connect or better understand maybe who they are or where I might have been as young women in their country in the Philippines years before moving here. Little did my mom and aunt know that my partner and I had actually purchased movie tickets to go see Lino Brocka's 1980 film Bona, which stars Nora Honor. Uh, Coincidentally or serendipitously, Bona was playing at our local film center. Uh, it was part of a series about restored and rediscovered films, so kind of knew about it before Nora even had passed away. When she did, definitely were buying tickets to go see it, but it felt like a no-brainer to ask my mom and my aunt if they wanted to join us. They immediately said yes, so we bought two extra tickets and now had four tickets to go see Bona. I think that's kind of when it really hit me. It was more of this light bulb moment. These were not just well made films, they were time capsules, they were diaries, and they held or still hold the memories, hopes, and fears of my mom and my aunt's generation. I was starting to understand that my mom's and aunt's maybe obsession with the melodrama in some of this like on-screen TV movies and whatnot were there were pieces of their lives kind of reflected back in them. To close that gap and really understand the people who raised me, I decided to make more of a mindful and conscious effort to sit down and watch even more Filipino movies. Therefore, my intentional mini crash course on Philippine cinema really started with the superstar herself, Nora Honor. My understanding is that Nora was actually involved with the restoration of Bona, so that made it even more special to go see it when we did. And I am so glad that we had a chance to go see it, but also be seated next to my mom and my aunt while we saw it on the big screen. They have seen other Nora movies, but it was actually their first time watching Bona as well. And we recently placed the order, so we will also own a copy of Bona soon. In Bona, Nora plays a diehard fan for like this movie extra. She basically becomes a servant to him. I mean, she moves out of home, moves in with him, does his cooking, does his cleaning, does it all. And it's, I guess, it's an uncomfortable look at obsession, class, and unrequited loyalty. So after Bona, I continued my crash course at home with Ishmael Bernal's Himala. That movie was released in 1982, and I knew it was a landmark of Philippine cinema, but I definitely was not prepared. Nora Honor's performances in Bona versus Himala, very different, fantastic in their own way. So yeah, Nora Honor's performance was wild. She did not have to do much or say much. Like anytime she spoke, it left an impression. Her eyes did all of the speaking, the body language. Again, her performance and her characters are obviously very different between Bona and Himala, but it was wonderful to see her range and really enjoyed watching her and looking forward to watching some more of her movies soon. So watching Himala, I finally got it, right? The movie wasn't just the story, but also the context. So in the 70s and the 80s, the Philippines was dominated by martial law. And in that climate of intense censorship and fear, these filmmakers, they couldn't just come out and critique the government, but boy, were they clever and creative. Directors like Lino Brocka and Ishmael Bernal became masters of allegory and social critique. Himla can be seen as a critique of blind faith, but not just in religion, also in political saviors. So I felt the movie was a profound statement about the nation's soul. Again, thanks to Kani and the Blu-rays my partner ordered online, my watch list just kept growing. So we moved on, actually, to watching Mike De Leon's Kisap Mata. I think I watched Himala on YouTube. So we watched Bona in theaters. We will own it on Blu-ray. We watched Himala on YouTube, I think. And then we owned Kisap Mata. This was a 1981 film. It's a psychological horror film, and it is suffocating with tension. It's about a controlling or authoritarian like father who just rules over his family, right? His wife, his daughter, his soon-to-be son-in-law. This one gave me anxiety and stressed me out. I'll watch it again one day. Blown away by how like claustrophobic you could feel watching a movie, even in the comfort of your own home. This was also my introduction to Jay Ilagan. And then I later put two and two together that Charo Santos is Charo Santos Concio, who was the host of MMK for a very, very long time. So now I understand who she is and, you know, where her career has taken her. But that was Kisap Mata. After Kisap Mata, we watched Mary Lou Diaz Abaya's Moral, which came out in 1982. And this follows four women kind of navigating life after college. The four female characters here recently, I guess, graduate from the University of Philippines, or UP. And this was kind of cool because it was set around the time that my mom and my aunt and my uncle were attending college in Manila. And I studied abroad there, so it was nice to see what was college like back in the 80s versus 2018 when I was there. And most of the friends that I made when I studied abroad actually also went to school at UP. And I saw them recently this year, but before that I had missed them. And this was, again, just a cool way to reconnect and see what was life back then, just like all these, different threads kind of coming together. The college stuff, the UP stuff, Philippine stuff. I feel like a lot of people could relate to this today. All the characters are complex. They're, dealing with their own agency with so much honesty, and I think it can be very relatable. And actually, even on the back of this, it says, somewhere in this movie, you will find yourself. I would agree with that. Okay, and to prove that this era was not all doom and gloom, we also watched Mike De Leon's Baka 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 Ba, or Will Your Heart Beat Faster? I think Charo Santos. Wait, is she in this? Yeah, Charo Santos, Sandy Andalong, Jay Ilagan again, and Christopher De Leon are in this movie. I went into this one completely, very blindly. I just knew that there would be, I think it was like a musical. I knew it was going to be funny, that there was going to be music involved. So that's all I knew. This is a wild movie. It took me a while in the beginning to understand what was even going on. So if you watch this, maybe you'll understand what I'm talking about. But overall, this musical comedy uses satire to tackle foreign influence and political corruption. It was clever, funny, and fearless. I'm glad we own it. Don't know how soon it will be until I watch it again. Maybe we showed it to my mom and my aunt. I don't think they'd seen it before, but we made them watch this after we watched Bona together in the theater. And another movie that my mom and my aunt borrowed from us, but we haven't watched yet, is Minsay Isang Gamo-Gamo, or Once a Moth, which also stars Nora Honor. So we own it, just gotta watch it, but looking forward to watching this one soon too. My watch list of Filipino cinema obviously was starting to grow, in addition to all the stuff from the Criterion channel that we watch. So I could see this like rich tapestry of Filipino cinema, and it really feels like it was born out of turmoil and resilience. To me, it's not just escapism, but a mirror held to society. It's proof that even in the darkest times, storytelling could be an act of defiance. I started to really have respect for these movies and the artists and everybody who helped make them. So, again, being first generation, growing up in the early 2000s, my journey throughout all of this could not just end in the past. I was also very curious about what Philippine cinema looks like today, who are the directors and filmmakers making art and movies in the Philippines now. I mentioned earlier that we watched Martika Ramirez Escobar's Leonor Will Never Die, from 2022. It's a wonderfully strange and heartfelt tribute to the Filipino 80s action movies that I told you my Lola Lola duo babysitters played a lot growing up. So that's kind of why I enjoyed it. It was nostalgic to me because it reminded me of the time that they were watching those movies. But Leonora Will Never Die, I unfortunately don't own a copy of right now. Maybe I will in the future. If you know where I can get it, let me know. It's about a retired screenwriter who actually falls into a coma and becomes the hero of her own unfinished script. It's creative. It's really like a playful love letter to cinema itself. I was really excited about this. I heard, like, I think, friends of mine here in New York who are not Filipino heard about the movie, and that was a cool way to find out about this film. Earlier this year, I also watched Glenn Barrett's Cleaners. I'm actually wearing his hat from La Long Life. I don't know much about it. I just know that I saw this hat that says Baliktad, and I was like, I need that. So I messaged on Instagram, and he was kind enough to actually ship it. Of course, I bought it from him, but he was kind enough to ship it all the way from the Philippines to New York. So now I get to represent and use this. I think it'll be like a great conversation starter with friends, with family, and then just other people on the street. So thank you again, Glenn, for sending me these hats. But yes, I watched Glenn Barrett's Cleaners, which is a 2019 film and a coming of age story about high school students. Just again, trying to figure out who they are, what really I was attracted to this movie for a couple different reasons. Again, it just looked really cool. I love like the highlighter colors. Love that it's a coming of age story that takes place at a Catholic school. I went to Catholic school my entire life growing up, and the students in this film were wearing the uniforms that really remind me of the students I'd see, when we visited family for at least 3 weeks at a time in 2003, 2010, and just made me think of the cousins that I played with after school who were still in their uniform, and kind of felt like it gave me a glimpse of, well, what were they doing before they came home and played with me? But this film is really unique, and it's unique in how it was made. The entire film is actually made by printing out each frame, coloring it with highlighters, and then scanning them back in, which is wild. Sounds like quite a laborious task, but well worth it in the end. The result really is this like fuzzy, nostalgic, and deeply moving portrait of being a teenager. Another reason I was attracted and really wanted to watch this movie is because one of the friends I made when studying abroad was from Tuguegarao, and that is where this movie takes place. And I believe it actually takes place at the school where my friend's brother went to school. So I've never been to Tuguegarao and wanted to see, what life might be like there. Last but not least, we also watched Dwayne Baltasar's Oda Sawala. This movie is from 2018. Oda Sawala translates to Ode to Nothing. And when I heard that Bokwang was starring in like an art horror drama indie film, I was like, I need to see that. So we watched Oda Sawala, and it's about a lonely embalmer whose life changes when she befriends a corpse that shows up on her doorstep. It is a haunting meditation on loneliness and our need for connection. Yeah, this movie, I felt like lonely while watching it, and a lot of it like kind of spooked me because a lot of the colors or the setting kind of reminds me of one of the bedrooms in my mom's childhood home growing up that I stayed at during like Holy Week or Easter in 2018. There's just something about like, I don't know, I think like lime green and just like the lighting and the furniture. It was my first time like staying at the house just with a family friend, but not with like a bunch of people. And you know, at least today, there's nobody like really living there full time, so you can kind of feel the emptiness and the loneliness. So it really reminded me of my stay at that house and it being a little quieter than I would have liked in 2018. We also have a family member. They're not an embalmer, but they run a funeral home. And this just kind of reminds me of like the small businesses that exist in towns, and they do serve a purpose. So an important purpose, of course. And I I felt like it kind of helps me like connect to those relatives in a weird way. Yeah, so there you have it. Watching these films felt like coming full circle. The spirit of defiance from the martial law era, the emotional depth of classic and iconic dramas, and even the heart of the rom-coms, the love teams. All of these films are seen through the eyes of a new generation. I think filmmakers are still grappling with big questions of history, society, identity, and figuring out how to tell and share all of that in their own unique voices. In all of these stories, I finally started to see parts of myself as a 20-something Fil-Am living on the outskirts of New York City. I often feel like I'm trying to piece together a sense of myself from fragments of culture and family history. These films explored memory, nostalgia, and finding your place in the world. And that is certainly something I can relate to. These movies showed me that Filipino identity isn't one thing. It's a living, breathing, evolving conversation, and cinema is one of those ways that conversation can happen. So I think it's safe to say I get it now. There's definitely a bigger picture here. That feeling I used to have about being an outsider, kind of looking in on my own family's joy when it comes to Filipino media, TV, movies. It's not quite there anymore. I would say it's been replaced with connection. So my journey started out with a simple question: what is it that I'm missing? And it turns out it was a whole lot. I was missing the history, the context, the artistry, and the heartache embedded in all of those stories. These films have become my teachers. They are history books, they are time capsules, they are family albums and love letters from one generation to the next. Himala told me about the Philippines' resilience, and Leonor Will Never Die has shared that even this new generation has a voice and a say in the story too. There's a Filipino psychological concept called kapwa. It doesn't have a direct English translation, but it refers to a shared sense of identity, a shared inner self with others. It's the idea that you aren't separate from your community and that your self is tied up in the collective. Through this journey into Filipino cinema, I think I finally am starting to understand kapwa even more. I feel it now and kind of share this inner self with my mom, with my Tita, with all other Nora Honor fans, and everybody else who watches these movies or has watched these movies. I even feel kapwa with the directors and the actors on screen who poured their souls into their work. I feel it with the broader Filipino community here on the East Coast, the West Coast, everywhere in between, and all over the globe. The obsession was never really about Lloyd Cruz or Nora Honor, but an obsession about sharing a story and feeling connected. And that is a language I'm so grateful to finally be learning. So there you have it. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. And please don't forget to share what your favorite Filipino films are down in the comments. I'm building my watch list based on your recommendations and want to add yours to it. Let's keep the conversations and the stories going. I will see you in my next video.